الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue in kitaab-attawheed, Friday, October the 4th, 2019. The time now it's 7:26 p.m., which agrees on the Hijri calendar, the 6th night of Safar, the year 1441 after Hijrah Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. This blessed night, inshaAllah, in which we continue kitaab-attawheed, and we're still in the chapter of As-Sihr. We're still in the chapter of magic. We were in the middle of the narration of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu ardah, when the Messenger of Allah talked about the 7 great destructive sins. We explained that from the 7 great destructive sins, where we stopped at last class, we were speaking about At-Tawheed Yawm al-Zahf, fleeing during the day of battle. If you notice that the narration says Zahf, Zahf means to march, which is clearly a meaning of what? Clearly the meaning of one partaking in a particular battle. But fleeing away during that day is considered from the kaba'ir. It's considered from the major sins. The major sins, except for what the Messenger of Allah gave an exception. As we talked about last class, all of the details return to the ayah, which is a surah to Al-Anfal. What is this? These phones, boy, I tell you, these phones these days, I don't even know what happened. I have no idea what happened. Anyway, we said it returns back to Surah Al-Anfal, ayah number 16. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the exceptions during the time of battle. It was permissible for one to flee, of what looks to flee openly, but in actuality it isn't. For what we mentioned last class was what, everyone? We said the first exception was what? Ahsant. We said we're fleeing in a way in the battle which appears as if one is fleeing, but in actuality one is gathering himself or strategically returning to the battle. As they say, يَفِرُّ وَرَاكًا عَلَى سَبِيلِ الْكَيْدِ أو مَكِيدَةً لِلْعَدُوِ. They flee, but however, in actuality the intent is not to flee. However, it's to return to battle. And one rectifies his affairs or gathers his equipment in order to plot or fool the enemy. And then he return back to fighting. As you'll find is the ayah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِلَّا مُتَحَرِّفًا لِقِتَالٍ. This is in Surah Al-Anfal, ayah number 16. إِلَّا مُتَحَرِّفًا لِقِتَالٍ. Mutaharrif, in this ayah, that it means one that flees, but in actuality, they're gathering their equipment, preparing to return to battle. It's in order to fool the enemy. As we talked about in the narration where the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Harbu khida'ah, that war is trickery. One can what? In the battle or the time of war, and as far as in what? The one who's in charge, when they plot against the enemy, that certain plans could be considered to trick the enemy. That's the exception in war. Other than that, as we know, that khida'ah or mukhada'ah or trickery or treachery is impermissible in Islam. Or ghadar, or one being treacherous or perfidious is impermissible. The only time it's an exception is during the time of war. During the time of war, as the Prophet ﷺ clearly mentioned in the hadith in Bukhari, al-harbu khida'ah. The war, one could be tricked or fooled in it. But other than that, it's not permissible to be treacherous to anyone or to betray your trust after you've given your trust to someone, or whether it be to a Muslim or a non-Muslim. So coming upon the one to what? To fulfill his amanat, to fulfill his trust he's been given, or the trust that he gives to someone. But that's the only exception. As we know in Islam, you'll find there's a lot of ahkam where it gives the general rulings, but in certain circumstances, there is an exception. For example, ghiba. As we know, ghiba is impermissible in all circumstances. Stop biting your nails. It's impermissible. Bite your nails. Bite your nails is not permissible. This is ghiba. This is not permissible. They say it's not permissible. Bite your nails. Just say don't bite your nails. Ghiba is impermissible. In its origin, excuse me, I'm sorry everyone, not all cases, but in its origin. In its origin, in its asl, it's impermissible. Backbiting. However, as we know, Islam gives an exception. The exception is what, everyone? When you would advise someone with the intention that you do it sincerely for Allah in order to save your brother or sister from a harm that potentially might harm them. For whether a person is a thief or whether a person you're marrying or someone who you might be dealing with in business transaction, you want to know who they are. So that in this particular instance is not considered what? As we know, it's not considered ghiba. It's considered nasiha. It's considered advice. So ghiba in its origin is impermissible. But there's one exception, as we said, or rather when it switches to nasiha. However, we know that nasiha is in those 6 places, as Imam Nawawi mentions in the poetry, that is considered advice, is not considered backbiting. As he said in his poetry, الغيب ليس بقدح في ستة متظلم ومحرم. Excuse me. الغيب ليس بقدح في ستة متظلم ومعرف ومحذر ومجاهر فسقا ومستفت ومن طلب الإعانة في إزالة منكر. As it says in the poetry, that nasiha is not considered ghiba in 6 places. متظلم ومعرف ومحذر ومجاهر فسقا ومستفت ومن طلب الإعانة في إزالة منكر. We said that the nasiha is not considered ghiba in 6 places. Number 1 is when one is being oppressed. He's mutadhallim, and they plead their case to the one who's, for example, from the authorities, or if they want to go to court. For example, if you were in a Muslim land, of course, you go to the courts and complain about a person who's oppressing you. For a person that mutadhallim in the Arabic language means mushtakin, one who complains, and they want to plead their case. That's the meaning of mutadhallim, one who's being oppressed. And when they plead their case, in order to have the oppression removed. That's mutadhallim. Do you have mu'arraf or mu'arraf? Mu'arraf is when one needs to know who a person is, to identify them. Who are they? In certain cases, such as marriage, or you're dealing in business, and at the head of all those affairs is the religion, as they are way more sacred than marriage or business transaction or trade or what have you. That's the reason why you'll find, based upon this origin, the ulama came with the books of jarh wa ta'dil. Because they know the most sacred of affairs is that you have to know who are the narrators, because they are conveying the religion. That's the reason why you'll find that they came with the books of jarh wa ta'dil, the books of praising the narrators or disparaging them out of advice for the ummah, to protect the religion so it could be preserved. So that's the reason why you'll find that the ulama criticize certain narrators. So-and-so is a liar, or so-and-so is trustworthy, or so-and-so is strong and accurate in their memory, to the end of it, based upon these narrations. Because if a person was now to come and generalize and say, all this is ghiba, a'udhu billah, so that means all these ulama from the past fell into a kabira min al-kabair. So you'll find that these ulama who came and said so-and-so is a liar, or so-and-so has a bad memory, or so-and-so was from Ahl Bid'ah, that all of them fell into ghiba. Is that the case? No, it's not the case. They gave it what? Advice for the ummah, in order to preserve what? The religion. And that's on a higher level than marriage, trade, business. The highest and the most sacred is what everyone, that the religion stay intact and be preserved. That's the reason why you'll find that they authored the books of what? Jarh al-Ta'dil. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Out of preservation for the religion. And that is the greatest of affairs, where one needs to be truthful and know what they know about a certain individual and to relate it to the ummah. So in regards to those matters, so just to give an example of how you'll find in certain matters where there's a general hukum, but Islam gives a certain exception in certain instances. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear or not? For example, even, I'll give another example. Even in the bab or the aspect of a person being ungrateful. We know that the origin of what they call men, basically now to remind someone of the favors that you've done for them, is called men. Right, everyone? It's called men. It's impermissible to make men on anyone. In order, for example, just someone you might have done a favor for your child or what have you, or someone you love, and then you just say out of nowhere, don't you remember what I did for you? Do you know who I am or what I've done for you? Do you know who you were before I met you? You was a piece of crap, and I'm the one that did you this, and I did this for you, and I'm the one that got you out, and I'm the one. That's called what, everyone? That's called men. Is it clear what I'm saying? There's an exception. There's an exception. The exception is if a person is constantly being ungrateful. You're constantly being ungrateful. Consistently being ungrateful. For you to remind them, just to remind them, but not go beyond the bounds and extremes of it, of course. To remind them of certain favors. Doing it, of course, with manners and dignity and respect, and reminding them of certain things so they can refrain from being ungrateful. Then that's when you can what? You can do it. There's an exception to the rule. If the person is being ungrateful, that you remind them of certain favors, but you do it with manners and respect. You don't do it by blowing it, pointing in their face, hollering, screaming, calling out their name. Don't you remember who you was? You was just a dirty piece of, you was downtrodden, pathetic, nothing. Is that how you do it? Is that respectful? It's not. Is it clear what I'm saying? But that's the certain exception. And there's other ahkam that you'll find that the ruling, or the origin of it is a general ruling, but then in specific places there's a what? Exception. Even in the aspect of trade and business. I'll talk about that later. But this is from those instances here that we're talking about here, this particular narration. The Prophet ﷺ said that what? Fleeing in battle is what? Impermissible. That's the origin. Once the battle starts, it's impermissible to flee. That's the asl. That's the origin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, however, gave the exceptions in his book and likewise in the sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ. What we said from those exceptions is what everyone is mutaharrif, the qital, or mutahayyiz ila fi'ah. Mutahayyiz ila fi'ah. We said the first one is, we already mentioned the first one. The second one is what? What's the second exception? Tafadda Abdullah, you already exist. Tafadda Qurban. Ahsan. Mumtaz. The second exception is when one wants to join the other group of the Muslims during the battle in order to strengthen their ranks. In order to strengthen their rank. However, we say that one can't do this during the battle if it will come as a result of it a harm. Meaning, if one joined and left and another Muslims, for example, during the battle, one is in the midst of battle, they see there's a group of Muslims engaged with the enemy, then you say, no, I want to go join these other party. You left your other group of brothers to be what? Decimated. Done. So now there's a harm. So in this case, you cannot do it. Rather because the harm now is what? Been actualized. Am I right or wrong? That's the only exception. If there's no harm, and person now flees, it looks as if they're fleeing to join the other group to strengthen their ranks. But in actuality, like we said, it's still not considered fleeing. But this is the second type of what we're talking about now, which is considered an exception during the time of battle, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Anfal. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? There's another exception that we mentioned, that we say if it's more than double the Muslims, Or, for example, in their weaponry, it's not adequacy in weaponry or equipment. For example, you go to the battle, the Muslims all have sticks, while they have a bunch of jets dropping bombs on top of the head of you. In that case, a person would not engage in the battle at all, because there's no adequacy as far as in the weaponry or the equipment. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? There's no adequacy. We said the great Imam al-Albani even mentioned to say why there's no jihad al-talab. He didn't say jihad al-dafa'. He said jihad al-talab. He says that one of the reasons why the Muslims will not be considered a jihad al-talab. He's not talking about defense. It's something different. The jihad al-talab, he said one of the reasons why you'll find is inadequacy in weaponry. There's a total imbalance due to the fact that the Muslims purchase all their equipment from where? For the non-Muslims. He says as a result of it, he said, you're going to say to the non-Muslims, let's start, before we start the battle, let's purchase our weapons first, then let's engage in the battle. Which is absolute nonsense. And that's one of the reasons why he said, and you'll find the great Imam Ibn Uthaymeen said similar to that. He says, for me in these days and times, he says of jihad, he said, لِضَعْفِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مَادِيًا وَمَعْنَوِيًا. He said, due to me, there is no jihad, a talab of seeking or going out to seek jihad in these days and times. He said, due to the severe weakness of the Muslims in their aqidah and in their weaponry. He said, due to the fact that all the Muslims are divided in their aqa'id. Because the strength of the Muslims comes from where? Comes from them being united where, everyone? In their aqidah. If they're not united in their aqidah, then where's the source of their strength going to come from? They're all divided in their aqa'id. And he said also due to their what? ضعف المسلمين ماديا ومعنويا. معنويا means aqa'id. Madiyan is in their weaponry, what is tangible, with their hands, meaning their equipment. It's a severe, major discrepancy in that matter, right or wrong, that they purchase all the weapons. And like we said, if this is the case where a battle or jihad starts, and this type of inadequacy appears, then the Muslim does not engage in the battle, because now there's no type of chances of them winning when you're fighting with sticks and they're fighting with bombs and dropping them on top of your head. You understand, everyone? Right. So that's what we mentioned in regards to the message of Allah said, turning and fleeing away during the time of battle, or the time when the Muslims are in jihad or a fight. So that's the origin. That is considered from the 7 great destructive sins. Why? Because it's considered kasru quwwat al-muslimin amam al-adu. It's considered breaking down the strength or the might of the Muslims in front of the enemy. And Islam needs to be shown its might and its strength in order for the word of Allah to be the utmost in the earth. And for that reason, fleeing away from the enemy is considered, as they say, إِضْعَافْ قُوَّةِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, like rendering the strength of the Muslims weak and making them look what? Helpless or cowardly, especially when one flees. طيب. The last part of the hadith, what does it say from the 7 great destructive sins? What do we mention, everyone? Where it says, قَذْفْ الْمُحْصَنَاتِ الْغَافِلَاتِ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Accusing a believing, innocent, chaste, believing woman of zina, accusing her and him of fornication. But the Prophet ﷺ mentioned woman, or specialized a female here, because in most cases, that's where it used to happen the most, where a woman would be accused of fornication due to the fact that the mahal, or the reason of a child being mixed up initially starts with where? The woman. And her being accused of fornication will cause some discrepancy in the lineage. And the woman is the one that starts from her being what? Pregnant. So that's why the Messenger of Allah specifically mentioned the woman here in this narration. Otherwise, you'll find that the hukm of Ahl Ilm, as we'll talk about, also men, likewise, join in this ruling. That from the 7 great destructive sins, for you to accuse a man, a chaste, they say chaste or chaste. Anyway, I think in Britain they say chaste. In America, I think they say chaste. But anyway, I think they say chaste in Britain. Because I heard the brothers, even when I was in the UK, they used to say chaste. I think here in America, do they say chaste? Or do they say chaste? They say chaste or chaste? Heard both. In the UK, I heard them say chaste. They say chaste, although chaste a woman or chaste a man. Here in America, what do they say, Abdul Mateen? Chaste? Chaste. Like a chaste man or a chaste woman or chaste. Protect their chastity. For any one person now, the man falls in the hukum. The man falls in the hukum. Likewise, if you accuse a man of fornication, it's considered from the 7 great destructive sins. So a person would think it's just a woman, because if you look in your books, it's mentioned what? What does it mention? Who's that? What's mentioned in your book? 7 great destructive sins. Woman. Taib. Does the man who protects his chastity, the one who's free and innocent, that would never, who's far away, that he would fall into this type of sin, is he fall into the same ruling under the woman here? Are they both the same? Huh? We say yes. We say yes. The reason why, like we said, and I'll say it again, why the Messenger of Allah specified the woman here is because the woman is the one where the lineage starts, where she's what? Pregnant. And for a person to accuse a woman of fornication will now cause some type of suspicion, whereas the man does not know for sure whether or not it's his child or what? Another child. And that's where the problem starts. You understand? But however, an innocent chase, here we go. An innocent woman who protects her chastity, it would never come to her mind that she will fall or do any of these type of acts. For her now to be accused of that will be now defaming her honor. Defamation of honor. And not only character, her honor, which is tremendous. Rather, we know that's from the highest forms of riba. The highest form of riba is al-istitala fi irdi akhika al-muslim. As the Prophet ﷺ said, min arba riba, al-istitala fi irdi akhika al-muslim. For the most highest forms of riba is that you defame or you disparage the character of your Muslim brother or sister. طيب. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned here, in regards to al-muhsana, that we know that fornication and adultery and homosexuality is included in this too. That there's conditions for it. The conditions is that there has to be 4 witnesses. A lot of people think, oh, this is 4 witnesses, that's enough. There has to be 4 witnesses, and it's not only just 4 witnesses. There has to be another condition. A lot of people just say, oh, it's 4 witnesses, khalas. No, they have to be Muslim, and they also have to be trustworthy. They have to be thiqat. They also have to be trustworthy. Not the fact they're just Muslim and that's it. Or they're just witnesses. 4 people seen it. Khalas. Not only that, they have to be Muslim. They also have to be trustworthy and reliable. They also have to see the eye, with the eye where the private part is going in the other private part. Yes. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? You cannot use a film or video. As you'll find at the fitna Muhammad al-Hadi, what they try to use. So-called a video where he's kissing his wife. In actuality, that came out, that was his wife. So they had nothing to stand on. طيب. They was using the video to accuse a person of zina. So the context of how Muhammad al-Hadi used it is to affirm that he what? That he was using the word ahir for fornication. Because he brought evidences to support that the man did something of zina, which wasn't substantial. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? Certain people are familiar with what I'm saying with, certain people aren't. Don't worry about it if you aren't. If you catch it, you catch it. But at any rate, what was used as an evidence is what I'm saying now. If you notice the context of the ahir, rather you'll find that he said a statement. He said, "Min ashad an-nasi fujuran fil a'rad." That's exactly what he said in the recording. Min ashad, he said, this individual, Ayyub al-Hulandi, min ashad an-nasi fujuran fil a'rad. He is the most severest of people in regards to violating his honor. Who are you talking about? He's talking about he's just a fasiq, he's just a sinner. The most severest of people, you're talking about he's a zani, he's a fornicator. And even in the madhab of Imam Ahmed, which he glorifies so much, in the meaning of it with Imam Ahmed, that he knows that the word ahir means zani. Because we know that Muhammad Hadi glorifies the madhab of Imam Ahmed, he loves Imam Ahmed so much. And in the meaning of ahir, the meaning of it with the madhab of Imam Ahmed is that a person is a zani, it's a fornicator. He knows that. طيب. Now when he did not bring 4 witnesses, nor did you didn't bring 4 witnesses. All of them also did not see the private part going in the other private part. This now results in what? 3 things. Since you did not bring the witnesses, since now you did not bring anything that was clear, substantial, where they actually saw the private part going in it, and like we talked about, videos is not used as an evidence. The witnesses have to actually see it with their eyes. The private part going in the private part of the other person. If you do not bring it, you don't bring these witnesses, it's coming upon you now. 3 things will apply to you as it comes to Surah An-Nur. Number one, you will be lashed 80 times. And we're not talking about us with the common folk. The common folk, this is not from their jurisdiction. This is from the powers of the ruler and the authorities only. طيب. You be lashed what? How many times? 80 times. Number 2, your shahada, your testimony will never be accepted. Your testimony is marduda. Number 3, what's the other one? There's a third hukum. That the person now, you're considered a fasiq. You're considered a fasiq. And there's another part of the ayah, so to know your person is considered a kidhab. He's a liar now. 4 things. If you don't bring 80, or you bring four witnesses, now 4 things are coming up that now apply upon you. Number 1, like we said, be lashed 80 times. Number 2, your testimony is not accepted. So that means that Muhammad bin Hadi cannot be a teacher anymore. He's lost his what? Him being an alim is done. He cannot give fatwa on anything. Shahada is rejected. These affairs are very dangerous, especially in these days and times of fitna. Knowledge is not now taken from this individual due to the fact that shahada is what? It's been now rejected. Number 3 is considered fasiq. Number 4 is considered a person who's a liar. All of this ahkam has been legislated, brothers and sisters, in order for the people not to play around with the honor of people. You cannot just walk around you cannot just walk around and talking about so-and-so's honor, defaming their honor, so-and-so's a fornicator, so-and-so's homosexual, without it being what? Properly done with the proper way, what is legislated. You cannot just walk around just talking about people's honor, like our people's honor is just real cheap. Khalas. We can talk about it, play with it like a little dial baby, and say what we want to say and how we want to say it. The honors of the people, of the Muslims, are very sacred. Rather they are sacred than the hurmah, rather they're more sacred than how the Kaaba is sacred. As you'll find that Abdullah ibn Umar has said to the Kaaba, he said, "Ma a'zama hurmataki." He says, how great your honor is, and how sacred you are. He said, but the honor or the sacredness of what? Of the believer is greater than you. Greater than the Kaaba. You understand, everyone? So it's not for everyone to play around with the a'rad or the honor of the people, except that it's done through proper ways, which are legislated, and through the proper channels. You cannot just be in the middle of a masjid, just call somebody ahir. So-and-so's a fornicator in the middle of a masjid. You cannot do that. And if you do have it, you go to the proper channels. You don't say it in the masjid, you go to the courts. You have to go to the authorities. And you do it in a proper way. You don't say it and scream out loud in front of a masjid that so-and-so's a fornicator, so-and-so's an adulterer, so-and-so's a homosexual, to the end of it. You cannot do that with the Muslimun, with the Muslims. Because it does say here, mu'mina. We'll talk about that later. Tayyib, because it doesn't say kafirah. I'll talk about that later. The mu'mina, or mu'min. Tayyib. I'll talk about that. I'll give a little bit of details as far as a kafir later. Tayyib. So that is the exception. Or excuse me, that's the hukum. Musa? That if a person is, he's memorizing. If a person now, if he accuses a person, or believe a woman or believe a man, then he has to bring how many? 4 witnesses. Not just only 4, they have to be what? Trustworthy, Muslim, and they have to actually see it. You understand, everyone? It's tremendous. These affairs of fornication and adultery is very serious for the one who accuses and the person who falls into it. All of these affairs are very what? Tremendous. Right, because like we talked about last class, that Islam came to preserve the ansab. It came to preserve the lineage of the people. And from the preservation of it is for the people not to fall into fornication or adultery or homosexuality and the likes of it. Right. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this, and he said, as far as now, I want to ask a question. If a person falls into being what they call a qadhif, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that his or her testimony, if they fall into this, meaning accusing someone falsely of this crime, it says that their testimony is never accepted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلَا تَقْبَلُوا شَهَادَتَهُمْ أَبَدًا. Do not accept their testimony ever. Fine. Is this forever, even though let's just say they make tawbah? Could their shahada be accepted or not if they made repentance? I'll read it quickly because we got a lot to cover. Fine. The acceptance is, brothers and sisters, you'll find that Ahl al-Ilm, as Ibn Uthaymin said in this regard, he said he differ. He said, فَمِنْهُمْ قَالَ لَا تُقْبَلُ شَهَادَتُهُ أَبَدًا وَلَوْ تَابَ وَأَيَّدُوا قَوْلَهُمْ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ أَبَّدَ ذَلِكَ بِقَوْلِهِ وَلَا تَقْبَلُ شَهَادَتُهُمْ وَلَا تَقْبَلُوا لَهُمْ شَهَادَةً أَبَدًا. Do not take their testimony, do not accept it forever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said abadan. Abadan in the Arabic language we know means a ta'beed, forever. So that the hukum is never removed mutlaqa. It's not removed in any shape, form, or fashion. He said, from Ahl al-Ilm do say, بَلْ تُقْبَلُوا لِأَنَّ مَبْنَى قَبُولِ الشَّهَادَةِ وَرَدَّهَا عَلَى الْفِسْقِ فَإِذَا زَالَ وَهُوَ الْمَانِعُ مِنْ قَبُولِ الشَّهَادَةِ زَالَ مَا يَتَرَتَّبُ عَلَيْهِ. To the end of it. That's the second statement of Ahl al-Ilm. So then they say, rather, their testimony could be accepted. He said, because the foundation of the acceptance of their testimony, of it being accepted or rejected, is based upon fisq. Fisq. What's the meaning of the word fisq, everyone? Transgressor, sinner, ahsant. Disobedience. طيب, ahsant. فَإِذَا زَالَ وَهُوَ الْمَانِعُ. So if it's removed, and that's the thing that's preventing one from accepting the repentance, of course. If that's been raised and removed, then what? That also has been removed from that is what comes as a result of it. Is it clear? So he's saying here it can be. However, he says ultimately, just to sum it up, keep everything concise and straight to the point. He said all of this goes back to the hakim. All this will go back to the what? To the judge in the courts of what he sees suitable. It's a suitable ruling. And if he sees from the benefit of his shahada not being accepted, in order to be a deterrent for the people, not to do this and to be lackadaisical in these affairs of playing around with the honor of the Muslims, then he can do that. He can say his shahada is never is accepted. He can do that. So it goes back to the what? To the judge, or what he sees befitting. Except, he says that the origin, أنه إذا زال الفسق وجب قبول الشهادة. He said the origin is, if the fisq or the description of him being a fasiq is removed, then it's obligatory to accept his testimony after that. Fine. So we say, just to keep everything summarized, that it goes back to what, everyone? Of what the judge sees suitable or befitting for that person's situation. So these affairs, ultimately, everyone is very what? Dangerous. Very, very, very dangerous. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? Very khatir, very dangerous. We also ask, well, we already, alhamdulillah, answered this. We say, are men included in the same hukum, even though the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the woman, or special? Now, we said the man also, definitely. fall into this. You cannot falsely accuse or come with the improper etiquette or mannerism or method of accusing anyone of fornication or adultery or homosexuality. Because homosexuality also falls in that, and lesbianism. Because they are all considered tremendous acts. Is it clear what I'm saying here? They're considered tremendous. When we say tremendous, we mean it's a major sin. A very, very major. Play, it's time for the salah. Who will call you then? Already? Time. وما أسرع الوقت في هذه الأيام. وما أسرعها. ما أسرع الأوقات والعصور. You understand so far? What are you doing?
You don't have the seven restrictions.
Where's your other book? Okay. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. Get some time, be right back. الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد الوسيلة الفضيلة وبعث مقام محمود الذي وعده. Say it again. طيب, let's continue, brothers. Take advantage of the time. طيب, next narration. طيب, just before we move on, the point of evidence here in this narration is what the Prophet ﷺ said from the 7 great destructive sins is sihr, is magic. Is magic. طيب. So you'll find why the great Imam put this in the chapter. I think it's clear. Why he put it in the chapter of what comes in regards to the affair of magic. باب ما جاء في السحر. I think it's clear. طيب. Notice in the last part of the narration, it says on the authority of Jundub. Jundub, if you look at your books. Who's Jundub? Is it Jundub ibn Abdullah al-Bajali, the great Sahabi? Is it? We say no. It isn't. It's another Jundub. It's another Jundub. His name is Jundub al-Khair al-Azdi. Al-Azdi. Jundub al-Khair al-Azdi. Jundub al-Khair. As the Prophet ﷺ nicknamed him Jundub al-Khair al-Azdi. Jundub al-Khair al-Azdi. Notice it says marfu'an. It's ascribed to the message of Allah as a narration or its hukum, or as far as its riwayah, or in its hukum, or in its ruling. It says had al-sahiri. Notice he said had. Darbatun bis-sayf. That the punishment or the penalty for the magician or the one who practices magic is that they're struck with the sword. They're struck with the what? With the sword. طيب. Notice it says in the narration, marfu'an. The word marfu', as we know in the Arabic language, means what? Or if you look in, excuse me. Marfu' means raised. However, in hadith, the word marfu' means it's ascribed to the Prophet ﷺ. The word marfu' means it's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. I think they translate as marfu'. Marfu'. Marfu' means it's ascribed to the Prophet ﷺ. In hadith. If it's mawquf, it's ascribed to a sahabi. If it's maqtu', it's ascribed to a tabi'i. So if you find it, I'll say it again, marfu' is ascribed to the Prophet ﷺ. So notice it says, an jundub marfu'an. Did it say mawqufan? Or does it say maqtu'an? No, it's saying marfu'an. Marfu' means ascribed to what, everyone? Mawquf means ascribed to what? It's a what? Sahabi. Mawquf. 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 Maqtu'. What does that mean? It's ascribed to a tabi'i. To a tabi'i. A tabi'i. طيب. It says here, marfu', that the penalty for a magician, he's struck with the sword. طيب. Based upon this narration here, look to the words. It says had, the prescribed penalty or punishment. That would necessitate what, everyone? That he still had. That's the reason why you have to be very careful in your words. It says had as-sahir. Had meaning here, he's still Muslim. That's what you will what? Understand. However, as we talked about last class, that the sahir, we discussed this. Is he killed haddan or is he killed riddatan? Depends. We say have some details. Is he killed out of being apostate, or is he killed out of just still being Muslim, but he still put to death due to him falling into this major sin? We said it depends. What did we say? Depends on what type of magic he used. If he uses magic by way of the shayateen, then he's out the fold of Islam. It's kufr. Wadih. Kufrun bawah. Absolute clear disbelief. Not the fold of Islam. Islam's nullified. You use the devil, the shayateen, or the unseen devils to do your work, to harm people, to harm individuals, then, like we said, that will nullify Islam. But we said if the sihr, upon what the great Imam al-Shafi'i mentioned, said that if it's by way of what he said, concoctants or liquids or medicines, he said adwiya or aqaqir or bukhur or some type of smoke or something they might use or what have you, then he said that that's not considered usage of the shayateen. However, even though he might not have left the fold of Islam, but he still, as a result of it, could be put to death. So a person would say, oh, Imam al-Shafi'i says he's not a kafir. He's still not being what? Lenient. The penalty ultimately is still death. The matter of affair, what they differ is whether or not he's Muslim or not. But ultimately, the penalty is still the same. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Rather, you'll find that a lot of Ahl Ilm, you'll find that they mention, it says, regardless, even if he learns magic, even him learning it and it being attached to his heart, he's still put to death due to the fact that he learned the knowledge. And just learning it in itself is what? That in itself is kufr. Learning the knowledge of sihr, of magic, of how to use the devils of the shayateen in order to what? To cause corruption in the earth. And you'll find that they say, even if, and that's where we talked about this in other classes, you'll find that they're very, very, very hard in these affairs from Ahl Ilm. Very, very, very hard, very stringent in regards to magic. To the point where they say that a person, even if, let's just say, I want to make tawbah, they say he's still put to death due to the fact that he still has knowledge of magic. He still has it around his heart, in his heart. It's due to the fact that it's still in his heart, that is enough. And they will say from the aspect of preservation of society, and the fact that he probably might be fooling the people and tricking them. Oh, I made Tawbah. But in actuality, he might more than likely fall into it again. So you'll find that these affairs of magic are very, very what? Very dangerous. To learn it and to teach it and to be a practitioner of it, that's even on a higher level. For what we say in this regard, notice it says in the statement, what does it say, everyone? Hadd al-sahir, the penalty. But we talked about this has some details in it. If it's the kind of magic that the person is using the shayateen, that's kufr. If it's other than that, then we say, then that's still considered fisk. But like we said, the person who's the ruler can still put him to death or her to death. Notice it says that he is struck with the sword. He's struck with the sword, meaning that person is put to death, whether or not, like we talked about in the details that we mentioned, whether it was whether the person is killed out of being an apostate or a person still being in the fold of Islam. And that has details as we already mentioned, right, everyone? Notice it says in the narration, if everyone looks in their books, Rawahu Tirmidhi wa qala as-sahih. Now listen to this. Listen to Tirmidhi says. He says this narration is authentic, however it is mawquf. It's mawquf. What does it mean it's mawquf? It means it's a statement of a sahabi. It's a statement of a sahabi. We'll talk about this in a second. First, before we talk about this in detail, as Jundub, like we talked about, is not the great sahabi, as a lot of people would think, especially who's in hadith. They would think it was Jundub ibn Abdullah al-Bajali, the great sahabi, radiyallahu anhu ardah. But we said it was not Jundub ibn Abdullah al-Bajali. It was another Jundub. Jundub, what they call Jundub Khair al-Azdi. You'll find in the narration that we talked about last class about what took place with him, where he's seen a man that was practicing magic. And it was again, it's sad to say that a lot of these affairs in the beginning, especially in the early part of time, took place in Iraq. Especially, it's sad. But anyway, it says that there, during the time in Iraq, there was a man who was a magician who was playing amongst the people. And he would hit the head or strike the head of a person. Then he would scream. And then his head is as if, or it was illusionary that his head was put back, as if he gave life to the dead. Strike the head, then he would show, or some type of illusion as if he was bringing the person back to life, where he put his head back on the person, then bring him back to life. This narration, you'll find that the great Imam, Hamid al-Liwal, Jarh al-Ta'dib bil-Haq, this narration, let me finish it first, let me finish reading it. So it says he would put his head back on him, and it's as if he's given the illusion that he's given life to the dead. There was a man from the Salih al-Muhajirin, as we talked about last class, who was Jundub al-Khair al-Azdi. So he came, and when the man did it, he came and the next day, gathered his sword, and then he struck him with it. He says, and if you're truthful, bring yourself back to life. When he had now did this, first, number one, we say this narration is authentic. This narration is authentic. There's a lot of supporting chains in which the great Imam Sheikh Rabi' even mentioned. He said, قُلْتُ وَلَكِنْ الْقِصَّةِ لَهَا طُرُقٌ تَصِحُّ بِهَا. This story, what happened with Jundub, he said the narration, or there's other chains, that this narration becomes authentic by those chains. Those other chains. So the story, number one, is what? It's authentic. So this story, it took place. So now let's go on to your books. Now I was talking about here the ruling that he mentioned. He said, حَدَّ السَّاحِرْ ضَرْبَةٌ بِالسَّيْفِ. He said that the ruling or the penalty for the magician is that he struck with the sword. You will find that Ahl Ilm that they saying, of course, that they say that this narration is mawquf. This is what even Sheikh Rabi' even mentioned. وَيَذْهَبَ بَعْضُ الْعُلَمَاءِ إِلَىٰ أَنَّ لَهُ طُرُقًا يَرْتَقِي بِهَا إِلَى دَرَجَةِ الْحَسَنِ. Some of Ahl Ilm say that there's other change that raises the level of this, what you're looking in your books right now with Tirmidhi, that raises it to the level of Hasan, of it being at the level of what? Of it being sound. It's acceptable. However, and this is what he goes on to say, he's giving some details. وقال الإمام أحمد ثلاثة من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اتفقوا على قتل الساحر. He said, Imam Ahmad mentioned, it said, 3 of the companions of the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم agreed upon that a sahir is killed. What is he mentioning here? Meaning that Tawbah is not sought from him. Due to the fact you'll find there were Sahaba who killed certain magicians and they did not what? Seek repentance from him. That's what he's mentioning here. Just listen. بعضهم يقول هو كسائر المرتدين إذا ارتد يستتاب فإن تاب وإلا قتل. So we're talking about now whether or not his tawbah sought from him or not. This Imam Ahmad said there was 3 from the companions of the Messenger of Allah who both agreed upon that the magician is killed, meaning with the authorities, of course, because I want to keep elaborating, making that clear for the FBI listening online. I'm saying that is not for the common folk, that is for the ruler and the authorities. All these ahkam are for the rulers and the authorities. Now, the reason why we're teaching this is to show the severity of partaking in magic. It's the reason why we're talking and teaching it to the people. Because it's considered corruption in the earth. You're hurting people. You're hurting lives. Like we said, magic is real and it can affect people. And it's considered corruption in the earth. And it can drive people crazy. And it can destroy families. And it can destroy and break up loved ones. That's the reason why you'll find the beauty of Islam, forbidding these type of practices. Because it's considered corruption in the earth. You can separate families. You can separate loved ones. You can kill people, drive them crazy, drive them to the level of insanity to the end of it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So that's to show the severity of why Islam highly prohibits magic and the practice of it. طيب. So we said that the mas'ala, some of them say that this affair is like the rest of those that are apostate. For example, if the person apostate, let me read it again. Imam Ahmad said 3 from the companions of the Messenger of Allah agreed upon that the magician is what? Killed. What is he saying here? He's saying here that they did not what? Seek Tawbah from them. They didn't do anything. Do you make Tawbah or not? Fine. Now in the second statement, I want everybody to be attentive. The second one, some of them say, like they like the rest of those who apostated. Meaning if a person is apostates, then Tawbah is sought from them. If they repent, then alhamdulillah. If they don't, then of course we know they're killed. What is he saying here though? What do we understand from this statement? That Tawbah could be what? The person can seek what? Tawbah from him. So that's basically what he's saying here. طيب والشاهد, listen what Sheikh Rabi' goes on to say. والشاهد أنهم متفقون على قتله. طيب, whether or not they say he's Tawbah sought from him, or Tawbah is sought or not, he said, what we want to say here is that they all agree that he still or she is what? Killed. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, everyone. Astaghfirullah to be late. The origin is that we know that the penalty for the person who practices magic is that they kill, whether they be considered what? Muslim or left the fold of Islam. He said, however, they differ on whether or not Tawbah is sought from them or not. He said to summarize it, to keep everything summarized. He said, we gather from this that sihr is disbelief. And we know the details that Imam al-Shafi'i gives. I think everybody knows that already, right? Does everyone know the details of Imam al-Shafi'i said? We already talked about this. I'm sure I don't want to repeat it again. Huh? What did Imam Shafi'i say? Oh my God. Suhail. No, Abdullah. What does Imam Shafi'i say? It's the reason why I tell you guys to review. Huh? You want to pass it off Tafaddal Qurban. That was a good way to escape. Tafaddal. Tafaddal. It's good. However, goes back to the ruling of the judge, no doubt. Ahsant. It's a big part of the answer, but we say Imam Tafaddal. You want to? Jay. Imam Shafi'i said if it's described or this person is being accused of using magic, Sif lana sihrak. Describe to us what type of magic you use. Huh? Is it clear? That's what I said. That's why I said to write it down. He's memorizing. Is it clear what I'm saying? طيب. So that's what Imam Shafi'i mentions. However, he says, just like what Qurban mentioned. All of them, so they differ in regards to whether or not Tawbah is sought from the person or not. He differ in that. Just to conclude everything and keep it summarized. He said, we say, هذا يرجع إلى اجتهاد الإمام. He said that goes back to what the Imam or the judge sees befitting. Or sees fit. Is it clear what I'm saying? For maybe perhaps the judge could what? Seek Tawbah from him. فَيَتَرَجَّحْ لَهُ الْإِسْتِتَابَةِ. He could see it's befitting for him to what? Seek Tawbah from him or not. Ahsant. Looking into the affair, the evidence and the proof, the aqwal al-ilm, and all the evidences that what they see fitting for that particular situation. Just to conclude everything, the affairs of magic is very, very, very dangerous. A person, the judge, you don't know whether the judge is going to rule you being put to death or not. Do you want to take that risk? You understand, everyone? So magic is not something what? Nothing to play with at all. Whether it be the type of magic of the shayateen, or whether it be the type of magic of using liquids or medicines or concoctants or what have you, or it being illusionary magic. All of it is impermissible. Doesn't matter what type it is. Whether it be illusionary, whether it be medicines, or seance, or smoke in a room, or whatever it is. Or using something in which you don't understand you don't understand the language that's being used, or what type of, some type of spell that's now been written into some type of paper that you don't understand the language, and all these affairs. And like we talked about, we'll speak about inshallah, that all these are from the affairs of the voice of shaitan. All these are from what they call randa to shaitan. The voice of shaitan. And the shaitan, his voice is a lot. From that is magic, of course, and telling the people to practice it. From that is music. Music is the voice of shaitan. From that, inspiring people to practice polytheism. To the end of it. It's a lot of it. We'll talk about that inshallah as it comes. Because I'm going to finish the chapter before we pray. Come on, brothers, let's finish. Notice the Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, what did he say? في صحيح البخاري عن بجالة ابن عبده أو عبده قال كتب عمر, which is reading in English. Umar al-Khattab رضي الله عنه said to kill every male magician and female magician. And it said in the narration, we killed ثلاثة سواحر, 3 magicians. That was the narration to show that some of the Sahaba did not what? Seek Tawbah from the person at all. They didn't even investigate. Notice it goes on the authority of Hafsa. Hafsa was who, everyone? The daughter of Hafsa. She's the daughter of who? Umar al-Khattab. You with me? Hafsa is the daughter of who? Umar al-Khattab. I was just told it. Umar al-Khattab. طيب. She said that she commanded that there would be a female concubine, Jariya, that was killed. That had actually practiced magic on her, on Hafsa. So this is other support to show what, everyone? This is other evidence to show that they did not what? Seek Tawbah from, or for that person. That's another evidence. It says for qutilat. It did not say in this narration, if you look at your books, that they sought what? Tawbah from. So this is another narration to show clearly that in certain instances that if the Imam sees befitting, he does not have to seek Tawbah from the person. The Imam, meaning the judge or the delegates of the Muslim ruler. who are usually, of course, from the delegation, is those who are in the courts. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. As it also came in a narration upon Jundub. And like we said, is it Jundub ibn Abdullah? It's not. Like we said, all these affairs are very dangerous. If a person practices magic to make one fall deeply in love with them, or to hate a person, to separate between her and his wife, and a wife and his husband, a wife and a husband and a wife, all these are from the usage of the shayateen. And if a person does this, their Islam is nullified. Islam is nullified. La ilaha illallah is nullified. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? This is a deep level of disbelief, especially the practice of magic. طيب. So it goes on to say, so Qali Imam Ahmad, we already talked about that. 3 of the Sahaba who killed without seeking tawbah from that person. طيب, so let's read the Masail quickly, so we can end the class. طيب, the first one is Tafsir Ayat al-Baqarah. What ayah, which is the Surah al-Baqarah, everyone? Ayah number 103 and 104. Talking about the story of Sulaiman and the shayateen disbelieving. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent those angels as a test for the people, not to learn magic. You'll find in that ayah, that is a clear ayah to show that magic is disbelief. Magic is kufr. Especially if you're used by the shayateen, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in so many parts of the ayah, or in those ayat. Talking about, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself saying and mentioning that magic is kufr. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. Sulaiman did not disbelieve, however, who? The shayateen disbelieved. They taught the people magic. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that as a result of them falling to kufr by what? Teaching the people magic. Because in actuality, you're teaching them what? Kufr. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described teaching magic as what? Kufr. يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلَ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. Verily we've been sent to you, and the 2 angels that were sent in Babel, and as it says in that last part of the ayah. What does it say? Verily we were tested, we was made as a test and a trial for you. Do not what? Disbelieve by learning magic and teaching it and practicing it. So all these are ayats, which are what? Clearly showing that magic is in the deep levels of what? Of disbelief and kufr. In so many parts of the ayah, to the end of it. If you go back to the ayah, which is the Surah al-Baqarah, ayah number 103 and ayah 104, it's there. It's in there. And you find there's other parts in the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرُوا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَلَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. That one ayah should be enough. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they know that most indeed if they purchase magic by learning it and teaching it and practicing it, they will have nothing of a portion in the hereafter. They have nothing of a portion in the hereafter. How evil would they purchase if they only but knew? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly is condemning what? If a person doesn't want to accept what Allah says after, then what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do after Allah himself, who's the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and everything that exists, said that magic is kufr. طيب. Next, Tafsir Ayat al-Nisa. What does it say? The tafsir of the ayat which comes in Surah An-Nisa, which is talking about what? How the Jews used to practice and believe in what? Al-Jibt and At-Tawheed. And we said that from the meanings of Jibt is what, everyone? Sihr, magic. Jayyid. طيب, next, Thalitha. Oh, we already talked about that. Alhamdulillah. 4th, that the Tawheed قد يكون من الجن وقد يكون من الإنس. That a Tawheed can be from the jinn, and it can be from the human beings also. What is he talking about here specifically, though, the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad AbdurRazzaaq? What is he talking about? Ahsan. Tez. He's talking about the people of fortune telling. People who claim to have knowledge of the unseen. Are you writing this down? In your book, you can write in your book. fourth matter. Right next to it. The fourth matter. طيب. So it's talking about here a specific type of Tawheed. Who are they, everyone? Those who claim to have knowledge? So the people who claim that knowledge of the unseen could be from what? The jinn or the ins. From the jinn or the what? Or the ins. The jinn who attain the news and lie, and those who they reveal it to, who are the fortune tellers. From the crystal ball readers and palm readers to the end of it. And like we said, this also applies to numerology. Especially these days and times, which also is the same exact thing. The illah, I want everyone to understand. The illah, or the reason why these affairs are kufr or tawhuti, because they claim to have knowledge of the unseen. Keep that in mind. If you have that in mind, then you're able to know of all these different practices that are considered disbelief. From them, like we said, is numerology. Why is numerology haram? If you look at the definition of it, if you go on your phones, even so-called Sheikh Google will tell you straight that numerology is something of what a person would predict or what will take place of some type of event. What's that, everyone? As soon as you hear that statement, you know it's haram because it's what? Claiming knowledge of the unseen. Is it clear? Claiming knowledge of the unseen. Type, same thing, what they call Astrodamus. Astrodamus, what they call them. The stupid magazines, what they call Astrodamus. How you say it again? How you say it? Is it Nostradamus or Astrodamus? What? Nostra? Nostradamus. I thought it was Nostra. But anyway, Nostradamus, you'll find that they have those magazines in certain stores. I don't know if they still sell them or not. But they still there. You'll find them in 7-Elevens, Rite Aids. You'll find them in different places, 7-Elevens and stores. Predicting that such and such day of resurrection will be next year because this happened in this particular time, which is all indications that this is going to happen on this particular day. Nostradamus. Those people that do this claim what? Knowledge of the unseen. Is it clear what I'm saying? Like we said, there was people out there that actually believe one of these people. It happened years ago. Where they said that their day of resurrection will be on a such and such day at a such and such time. And like we talked about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliated them. They built shelters under the ground and everything. And he took shelter on a particular day, and their resurrection did not happen. So you wasted their money and they wasted their time believing in this particular liar. Wasted the people's time, their lives, their money, building shelters to the end of it, and it was all a lie. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? All because the person claimed to have knowledge of the unseen. Predicted the day of resurrection, it never happened. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. And there's other than that, which we'll talk about when we have the time. So there's something I wanted to talk about, especially in magic, especially black magic and voodoo and all those other affairs that are satanic. طيب. Go back to the fifth. Jade. The 7 sins in which the Prophet ﷺ specified that are highly prohibited. That's clear. 6. That the magician falls into kufr. Jade. We already gave details in that. I think that's clear. طيب. The 7th. So you find that the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad Abdul-Wahhab is as if he is also mentioning here that it is some type of what? There is some khilaf. Is he killed directly or is Tawbah sought from him? It's as if he's saying here there is somewhat khilaf at the end of the what? At the end of the day. However, we ultimately said, what everyone, it goes back to the what? To the judge. What the judge sees befitting. طيب. The 9th. The 8th, وجود هذا في المسلمين على عهد عمر الله سبحان الله فكيف فيما بعده 8th affair, that this will exist amongst the Muslims. We said last class, what was the last class before this chapter? What was it talking about? How the Muslims will resemble the kuffar in a lot of their affairs. And from them is them partaking in what? Not only just magic, also partaking in what? Polytheism. Polytheism and magic. It says for the Muslims, not only that, but that happened during the time of Umar al-Khattab. During the time of Umar, what this took place, people practicing magic. He says, if that's the case during the time of Umar, what about those who came after him? How would the time be? After Umar al-Khattab. And I'm sure everyone has seen and I've heard, in a lot of Muslim countries, you'll find the Muslims practicing magic, especially in the places of Morocco, in Maghrib, in certain places in Yemen, and also in Saudi Arabia. I've heard of people who are practicing magic who were put to death. I've heard it. And I know certain scholars who were tested with it too. Well, they're not considered that anymore. But they were considered from those who were affected by magic. Yeah. And they were also practicing on their wife, on their family. Yeah. I'm not going to give any names. So that's to show that this does take place, and that this is from those affairs that are very dangerous. The next chapter we're going to talk about, inshallah, is the different types of magic. The anwa' al-sihr. So we'll stop here, inshallah. Anything about the lesson? Qurban? Of nasiha. The first one is the one who the oppressed, the one who you want to know who they are. Warning someone. The third is warning someone, meaning putting out a warning. A warning. So, right, for example, right now someone is known to be a kleptomaniac. It's been established. They're walking in your house. Your brother stands back. He watches that kleptomaniac go right into the house with you. Before you go to your house, you say, Akhi, listen, so-and-so's a kleptomaniac. Make sure you keep your wallet close to you. So what did he just do? He warned you. Based upon people who don't know or understand Islam properly, they would say that's what? Riba. Is that riba? It's a vice. It's a vice. And what's worse than that, it's a person that's upon deviance in their aqidah. And you tell them straight, you have some deviance. I'm sorry. Muhaddarin. No. It's this. One who's warned against. الغيبة ليس بقدح في ستة متظلما ومعرف ومحذر ومجاهد فسق. The person who broadcasts their fisq does it openly. If they broadcast their fisq, there's no ghiba for them. There's no ghiba for them. For example, I saw so-and-so on social media, they were kissing, or for example, she was uncovered, or smoking a cigarette outside. Person would say, Yahi, cover the sins of the Muslims' faults. Yahi, he already took it off himself, he's on the corner doing it. There's no ghiba for him. Now, if he did it secretly, behind closed doors, there you would say, Yahi, cover the faults of your brother. Is it clear what I'm saying? But if he's doing it on the corner in front of everyone, is there any ghiba for him? Or her? No. Same thing. Broadcasting your sins. They sitting on there on social media, Facebook with a cigarette. I'm with my man, my boyfriend. They saying it with their boyfriend. You removed the what? You removed the cover of Allah off of you once you did that. As we know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ said that Allah has His mercy. A person committing sins, Allah will put His cover in and cover up the sin for you. He will cover it up by His mercy what's good for you. Then you'll come tomorrow telling everyone or broadcasting it. So then you come now, well, on the day, now in the morning, now removing the covering of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala off of you. Khalas. If you notice, it says in the beginning of the hadith, كُلُّ أُمَّتِي مُعَافًا إِلَّا الْمُجَاهِرِينَ. That all my ummah will be forgiven, overlooked, except those who broadcast their sins. It says, إِنَّ مِنَ الْمُجَاهَرَةِ. Let me just keep it summed up. Verily from broadcasting is what? That a person does an evil act or something in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala covers up. Then now you say, oh, so-and-so, I did such and such last night. Or you say it or do it openly, taking pictures and broadcasting it and announcing it. Then as a result of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's covering is what? Removed. You exposed yourself. So now you've done it on social media and spread it and told people, we are not like the Christians. We do not confess our sins to the preacher or to the imam of the or whatever. If you have sins that you've done between you and Allah, Allah knows, and make tawbah between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was something else I wanted to mention about this regards to sihr. I'll do it next class though. Because that just reminded me of something that I wanted to talk about. That was something important. Because that just reminded me that if the matter of a person doing magic reaches the imam, if it reaches the ruler, then he has to carry out the penalty. He has to. Let's just say the person that practice magic did not read or did not reach the ruler. What will happen? Either the person now goes back to the person who's been oppressed. Either he can forgive the person and overlook it, or he could go and report it to the imam. If he reports it to the ruler, the penalty now has to be carried out. But if the person is oppressed, just forgives him, then that person's tawbah between him and his Lord would suffice. But if the person decides to take it to the ruler, then it has to be carried out. Is it clear what I'm saying? But now getting back to what you just said, Qurban, the person who broadcasts their sins, there's no ghibah for him. There's no ghibah for the person who broadcasts their sins. Nobody can say, oh, so, he was on the corner smoking cigarettes, he was smoking weed, right across the street. The sister had a weave in her hair with her eyebrows shaped up with some tight jeans on outside. I seen it. Well, I seen the brother outside. He was standing with his beard. He was smoking a cigarette, and his jeans was under his ankles. A person would say, cover up the faults of the Muslim. Yeah, he did it openly, and he broadcast it on Instagram and social media, took pictures of himself. And we know in Islam, that's dangerous. From the reasons from the hikmah of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll find, when a person commits these sins, you're supposed to cover it up. Why? So it won't lead to other corruption in society, where now you're calling people to do these crimes. And the fact that you're doing it openly, it removes the shyness. Where people now don't have any shyness, they just do it freely and openly do corruption. They don't care anymore. I don't care. You understand? And it also leads to a second thing that's very, very extremely dangerous, where you start to believe it's halal. You start to believe in your mind is what? Lawful. And once you think an affair is lawful, now you go into another level of what? Now you're going into kufr now. That's the reason why these sins, if you do it, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has tested an individual in his religion or in his uprightness, is to keep your sin what? Covered up. Don't do it openly. Don't tell nobody. Don't go out on social media bragging about it. And that's the show now. How much more if you're supposed to cover it up and the person's broadcasting? What about people who's just bragging about these sins? And then they also try to justify it with the stupid statement, don't judge me. With the most dumbest statement that Shaitan could reveal to people is to say, don't judge me. Which was a statement that I heard was taken from a rapper named Tupac. Don't judge me. And we say, we're not judging you. Allah is judge what your act is. We're just conveying you, telling you that you're doing haram. That's it. We're commanded the good, forbidden the evil. And that's from what? That's from the obligations of the religion. Command the good, forbidden the evil according to each person's level, of course. But the fact is you say, don't judge me, what are you trying to shut the door, command the good, forbidden the evil? Because that's what this statement does. That's what it leads to. Because you don't want nobody to say nothing. Shh, don't judge me. Yahi, don't you know that the Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that from the victory or makes us the greatest of people is that we what? Command the good, forbid the evil. So now you don't judge me. You were shutting the door of what? Command the good and forbid the evil. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ made it clear that what will be from the affairs that will not allow Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not answer the dua of the people if they stop what? Command the good, forbid the evil. That's from what makes this ummah so great. Is that they speak out against what Allah loves or what Allah speaks out for what Allah loves or what Allah hates. That's what makes this ummah so great. You command the good, you forbid it. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس إيش؟ تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are considered the greatest of people that was extracted from mankind. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? What was the reason? You command the good, forbid the evil, and you believe in Allah. So you now, a person saying don't judge me, means don't talk about my sins. Shut up. That's basically what you're trying to say. If you, and like we talked about, it goes back to this affair, if you did it in secret, we'll cover it up for you. Have mercy on your brothers and sisters. If they did it in secret, you know they did it in secret, they might have listened to some music, they might have fell into something in secret, it's between you, have mercy on the person. They're doing it in secret, and at the end, if they say, listen, I know I'm wrong, just have some patience, whatever, okay. Those people we have mercy upon, the utmost mercy. They do it in secret, khalas. Cover it up, advise them in secret. Problem is you start doing it, what? Openly. That's the problem. You understand? That's the issue. Because now, like we said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can see the reason of why these affairs are so tremendous. Because when you start to do these affairs, you do it openly, it removes the shyness from the people. And people start to openly, and just they don't care anymore about openly showing and displaying corruption. They don't care anymore. It rips the fabric of shyness. It's just done. And that's what you see what's going on in society right now. There's no such thing as shyness anymore. Everybody just does what they want, when they want, how they want, say how you want, say how you feel. There's no such thing as shyness anymore for anything. Just do how you feel. And this causes corruption in society. Because it's chaotic. Everyone can't just don't see this chaotic in society right now. They don't see it. And this is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited that these affairs be what? Done openly. That's the reason why if a person does a sin openly, there's no ghibah for him. There's no ghibah. If a person is ignorant because they just a new shahada, that's something different. But if it's a person that we know, you've been Muslim for 20 years, you know you're not supposed to be doing that. You doing it openly? Then that's another person. Now, if we talk about a new shahada that's doing something, that person deserves mercy. The last part of the poetry is Mujahid and Fisqan wa Mustaftin, the one who seeks a religious fatwa. Seeks a religious fatwa. Just as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the woman from the Ansar came to the Messenger of Allah, talking about Abu Sufyan, he says that my husband is stingy. Based upon that narration, you would think that she fell into what? Ghiba. He said, Inna zawji shahih. He's stingy. He doesn't give me what suffices me. The Prophet ﷺ at the end of the narration said, what? Just take from his wealth, or what will you can take care of your necessities. So he's seeking a fatwa from the Messenger of Allah. For a fatwa. That's not ghiba. The last part, that you ask or you seek someone who's able to remove the evil. If you do that in those 6 instances, that's not considered what? Backbiting at all. That's considered advice. It's nasiha for Allah. Anything else so we can pray, brothers? Tafadhal. No. No, depending on what type of magic he has or what he practiced. Oh, the qadf. He's talking about qadf. accusing someone of zina? No, that's not kufr. Unless you mix it halal. No, but in its origin, no, that's not kufr. It's testimony, meaning of him teaching, giving religious rulings. Also, testimony as far as in certain events that might take place. Let's just say Ramadan, they need these testimony. Certain affairs of being witnesses, all that's rejected. His testimony is not accepted. And from testimony, the greatest of testimonies is being a religious leader. Giving fatwa and teaching the people the religion. In that case, then that person is what? Is removed. All those different privileges is done. It's removed. Tafadal. Same thing. Mm-hmm. That's mu'arraf. That falls under mu'arraf. It falls under the second. You want to know someone's condition. You want to know who they are. Anything else? Musa? You had a question on Abdul Wahid? You can make me do. Let's stop here. It doesn't matter. That's the ruling. If the imam sees this befitting that he be killed, to be killed. The issue that they differ is whether or not he's a kafir or not. They still could be killed, even if they do illusionary magic. Yeah. What's that hazard? The mic? Oh, out the mic. Oh, طيب. We'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. استووا اعتدلوا تراصوا استووا صفوفكم فإن تسوية الصفوف من تمام الصلاة.